Welcome to the podcast. Nathan Newberry here, your host. Super pumped for you guys to hear David Sidoni's story here of just his challenges of growing up in Southern California, building a really cool real estate empire. Now he's online as an educator, helping people build some really cool things online, helping people in the mortgage and real estate world. So we'll talk more about some of those things there. He has his own podcast, so go check him out. But before we dive in, don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to continue to share these amazing stories and podcasts. That's always helping the platform and reaching more people. Everybody that's listening in, I have a free gift for everybody that's here. Many people want to build an online reach and impact in this world, but you got to build it with a personal brand. And you got to realize how to leverage ads, and you got to build and leverage with AI and build a media team and sales team. And that's what I teach down in this free workshop down in the description. So go check that out as my gift, free to everybody that's listening here. David, thank you for joining us on this podcast. As I start out here, one of the questions I asked everybody is, what is high performance? What does that look like? How have you applied that to your life?
It's an interesting thing for me because high performance is that combination of, I've always been a balanced person. A lot of people's success is monetary or material things. For me, it's always the work-life balance. So for me, high performance is continuing to stay motivated throughout the day while also enjoying what I'm doing, but having a real clear vision of the goals. Not just crushing today, but realizing that today is a step in my ladder for where I want to be.
And that changes over the years with different seasons, right? I mean, you have kids, you're married, and some of the ambitions you first started with and defining that, and then growing into those seasons where you're trying to balance and enjoy life too. It's a journey.
Yeah, it's been really, it's kind of fulfilling because for me, as someone who was so in that season of being the provider for the family, when I started this newest venture back in 2019, it really became kind of a culmination of everything. I'm not quite at the place where I'm giving back completely. I'm not Bill Gates with a foundation, but at least I feel like I'm giving back a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we want to do, is we want to share the insights to this world as much as we possibly can. I think that's a good thing. Talk to the audience a little bit and give them some context around like your success and how you serve people now. And then I'd love to ask some different questions about your origin story, but to give some premise here of who they're listening to, that would be always helpful.
Sure. The origin story is kind of crazy, so make sure you mark those questions. But the now is I run the How to Buy a Home platform. I'm the face, the brand, the spokesperson. It's a guru, educator. We're the #1 podcast for first-time home buyers. And How to Buy a Home, the podcast, has been up since 2019. I shifted a lot of the stuff that I was doing as a real estate agent into personal brand and the How to Buy a Home brand through all the different social medias. And we're just now getting into adding YouTube because I was doing everything all at first, listening to people. By the way, where were you 6 years ago with this free workshop thing, dude? That's what I needed. Yeah. I'm telling you, I learned all of this through paying for a bunch of workshops, listening to podcasts. I realized really early, congratulations, I'm good at what I do. But now I need to get a whole new education on how to be a marketer.
Totally.
When you're a solopreneur, man, that's the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Marketing is the key part for a business, any business, but especially the ones online for sure. That's cool. Talk to us about the beginning stages of everything here, because I know there's probably some line in the sand moments, some challenges, some hurdles you've dealt with. Give some context leading up to your success that you have now.
So in 2005, at 35 years old, both my wife and I had successful careers in show business. I was on camera as a television host and did movies and TV shows, and my wife was a choreographer, and we both wanted to have a family. And so I transitioned. I was doing investing in real estate, so I transitioned into residential real estate. Fast forward the story, 13 years of me doing residential real estate. A large part of what I did was helping first-time home buyers because the market crashed when I was an agent. And I also happened to be in Orange County, California. I worked at Disneyland in high school and college. So I had a lot of friends who worked at Disneyland. It's a wonderful job, but it kind of salary caps. Think teacher, cop, fireman. So it's really expensive around here. So when the market crashed, I ended up helping a lot of my friends who didn't want to lose their job, which filled them up, their passions, but wasn't necessarily going to break the bank. And so I learned how to help people buy homes in an unaffordable area. I also learned that no one in the real estate industry gives a crap about those people and treats them terribly. And the entire real estate industry is pretty much borderline corrupt. And in the way that the brokers are actually catering more to the agents who are untrained and unqualified to help these people. They're trying to make money off the agents, and no one's trying to serve the client. It's just expected that the agents will eventually serve the clients. So that was burning inside me. And then in 2018, my wife looked at me and said, "You're only happy when you work with the Disneyland people." And that's when I said, how do I build something online? Started listening to, Gary Vaynerchuk and Social Media Marketing Examiner, and, went back through all my personal growth stuff, and then started really seeing what the people who were doing it online were doing. And I started emulating, trial and error and error and error and error, until I finally built to where I am now.
Yeah, man. That's wild. I mean, you have a big audience on, YouTube. You got a few thousand there. You have a few thousand as well as on a bunch of different social media platform, like TikTok is busting through the seams with over 100,000 followers on there. Like, that's pretty wild, the reach that you're having. Are you seeing a lot of people respond, raising their hand and asking for a lot of help there? Or are you just educating people? Like, talk to us about some of that.
It's been a wild ride, and the data and analytics, I can nerd out with you all day long.
Yeah.
I am heavy into that. And there have been Instagram has been the bane of my existence. And it's just, but what I learned is, if you are I consistently listen to podcasts. I spent a bunch of money on social media experts over the years and hired and fired 7 different social media marketing managers. And I ended up learning so much on my own because you have to stay so on top of it. It changes so rapidly. And for me, the perfect example of the YouTube channel, we're just starting to get going right now. It's what I thought was going to be, but then the podcast took off. So now we're sitting in a podcast with over 1.8 million downloads, number 1 in the space. That's the main source of education that brings people to my platform. The whole time I realized I missed Facebook groups. I missed, the initial advertising that you could do on those that was cheap. I missed Reels when it came in. But then one thing I saw was suddenly I was all over it. I was listening to all the podcasts from the people that were up to date on what was going on. And I heard this thing called Spark Ads on TikTok. August, I think it was 23, maybe. It was a summer, and it was brand new. And basically they were going to roll you through the scroll, and the sponsored link was going to be so small, and it was going to be brand new, that people weren't going to know it. So I spent money just like I had spent on everything else with no returns. And that one $15,000 investment, I went from 7,000 followers to where I am now at 140. That was instantaneous. So keeping up with the trends is a big thing that I think is important. And eventually making the decision, am I going to hire a social media manager, that understanding that they're going to have a template and a playbook that they're going to put you into, or do you want to grow to the point where you hire your own internally? That's, as companies grow, that's everybody's big decision. But you have to understand that staying on top of everything and realizing what's happening and what's going on. As a podcaster, I've heard YouTube say 4 different times over the last 4 years that they're going to put an emphasis on podcasting. And over the last 3 or 4 months, it's actually true for the first time ever. And figuring out where your, shorts are going to go with your YouTube. Are they helping? Are they hurting? all of those things just take consistent monitoring, consistent tracking. For us, the podcast funnels people into the website, and then we ask every single person who comes in, how did you find us? And that's where we track, did they find us from an ad? Did they find us from the search of the podcast? Did they find us from the website? And then that's where we figure out where we're going to advertise next.
There's so many times that we want to give and release control because we don't want to deal with it, right? We could do that in a lot of areas in our life, but marketing is one of those things that you have to be involved with. You can lose your whole business if it's not defined with it. Some of the things that I teach that I really kind of found is that there's 4 skills that every business owner needs to continue to have. You need to know how to market your business. That's the first one. That's what we're talking about. You need to know how to sell your service or your offer. You need to know how to do the fulfillment, and then you need to know how to lead, your people or your systems or automations in a way that's designed in a way to kind of deliver on some of those things. And those are constant skills. Most of the time people have a job in one of those, but a business owner needs to have all 4. But the leading lagging indicator of doing fulfillment or service for anybody is that you have to land that lead and then convert it. Right. And so this is really where it's interesting is marketing is like, we can get educated or we can have an agency do some of those things. And I ran an agency for 9 years and I totally understand that. But there's at a point where you need to know and really be able to hold either them accountable or really learn it in-house, like you're talking about, to ultimately really be able to design it and see the ROI or the ROAS in that return. Like you've gone through a bunch of those sort of things, and then you're talking about the trends. Like, what else have you kind of learned through some of that process of building the business that you have now?
This is going to get a little philosophical, but I can get, like I said, as detailed and as nerdy as you want. But I'm in a mode right now because the last 6 months, I have gotten completely all in on AI. And just like TikTok, and just where I heard about it early and I didn't adapt, this is the same thing. The smart people who were I was listening to, who were educating me and helping me build my own business, not by them spoon feeding me anything, but by me listening to them and digging deep into it myself and getting deep on those 4 things that you talked about.
Yeah.
And so I delayed my time for TikTok, and then I ended up doing the Spark ad thing that helped. I delayed my education in AI. I knew about it, in 2022. The last 6 months, I'm completely all in now, understanding that as a marketing person, there's an ability to grow, and your team can be a dozen instead of 100. And the depth and understanding that each individual team member has on using the platform to increase productivity, not to replace the job, that is going to be crucial for moving forward. And I'm 1,000% all in on that right now. And so, whereas in the past, I was constantly trying to learn on exactly how the algorithms were presenting me, now I'm focused on 2 things. How can I increase with AI, and how can I use AI to really dig deep into what my customers are saying?
Yeah. Talk about some of the ways that you kind of create content or find ways to leverage the output of marketing and content that you're putting out.
Well, the first thing I did was, I'm in a unique situation right now. My audience is evergreen, or isn't evergreen. They turn over every single year. 1.2 million people buy their first home every single year, and they turn over, and I'm not trying to do add-ons or sell them anything else. It's a one-time transaction with me and my company. So realizing that, I'm spending a lot of time building up to the point that I'm at now. And so my content comes from my library. I spent the first year of podcasts just spewing everything I knew about the real estate industry, all the insider secrets, and the best ways to do what my clients want to do. I got to a certain point and it was like, okay, I have pretty much explained the basics, many times over. So now the podcast is update on current events, because the current events change how those basics will tweak a little bit.
Yeah.
And then interviews, so that they can hear a real person telling them how they did it instead of just me. And so for me, the content, it should be as easy as opening a custom chat GPT, putting all my content into a document that the custom GPT I give instructions to, and I go into it and go, based on the 6 years of David Sidoni and everything that you have in there, including my brand guidelines, over 340 episodes, every transcript I've ever done, I go, what would Sidoni say about the tariffs? Click, and chat GPT. And then if I don't like it, I'll go, that doesn't sound like me. Or, that sounds like we're talking to a new person. Talk to the 35-year-old who's got $100,000 saved and is just curious what to do next. If you have a library of content, or if you don't, if you have a library of ideas that are unique to your situation, grab a microphone, put it all down, throw it into AI, and then ask AI to help you format it into content. Now, 2 years ago, I would have had a whole different answer for you.
Right.
And I'm telling you right now, what I did back then worked, but why the hell would you do that now?
What's your media team look like right now?
Me and my creative director, we're lean and mean, baby.
Yeah.
We started,
Is that local? Is that overseas?
No, we both went to the same high school of the arts.
Okay.
Excuse me. When I started this project, I realized video was going to be a big part of it. So I went to my high school of the arts and I talked to the director of the Film and Television Conservatory, and I said, who's your best kid that graduated in the last couple of years? And I hired him freelance for a couple of years, and now it's 5 years later, and he's my full-time partner.
That's
so
great.
It's me and him.
Yeah.
And then we have a back end for the processes. And like I said, we've hired and fired 7 different individual vendors. So we are right now in the process of working with, got to the point where I've hired a larger marketing company, and they're helping me with a bigger project that we're trying to do for this year. But it's me and JT kills it for me. He's a film and TV editing machine. So what we are learning is, yay, we're really good at creating it. Who the hell wants it? Why do they want to see it? How do we get seen in the algorithm? So like, we're just marketing, customer data. That's like our day. And we just have to tell ourselves, this is the boring crap we have to do so we can do the fun stuff we like.
Yeah. I love that it's lean and mean, because I think people overcomplicate what it looks like to build an online brand, right? And talk about some of the freedom that's been able to give you, and the interesting part around the flexibility or even the time that you spend a week with what you're doing.
Well, it's been great because, one of those outside vendors that we hired was when we were originally trying to build our YouTube channel a couple years ago. And I was paying someone, I don't know, $7,000-$10,000 a month, something like that, where I would record my podcast in my studio, and then we'd give it to them, and then they would bell and whistle that thing to death. And I mean, it was great. It was fast. It was entertaining. It was engaging. It was, stop the scroll, but it was a YouTube video, so it's not a scroll, but it was that vibe. And nothing, no views, nobody cared. And then we went and took another workshop, and I realized he and I taking the workshop together, nimble, learning ourselves, realized, oh, it's the thumbnail and title. No one gives a dang about but so what was really interesting was then we're staying informed and watching what's going on. And suddenly the bells and whistles, the high production level stuff, this is like 6-8 months ago, started to be replaced by authentic, real, holding the camera talk. And so I looked at JT and I went, well, it's a good thing we don't use those guys anymore, because they'd be out of a job. And I'm all, bro, it's going to be easy for you. So I just started doing more of that. And, and then watching other people, and suddenly green screen became a thing. So part of my day was grabbing a bunch of headlines and making sure I was doing 1 or 2 posts a day talking in front of a headline. but being able to react together and then lean on him to say, hey, have you seen anything like this? Do you know how to make that work? I think that's, as opposed to calling up the vendor and saying, I saw this, can you do this? Sometimes they won't know how to do it and they'll fake it. Or, you know what I mean? So when you're doing it yourselves, it's not the most optimal way to grow a business. You want to be able to leverage. But because we did that ourselves at the beginning, it's easier for us to adapt in the future. And most importantly, it's going to be easier for us to explain adaption to whoever we leverage to when we become more profitable.
Something I found is the direct response marketing. If you're going to pay any ads is the best, to get, someone in your pipeline from a lead magnet or to DM you or some aspect of things like that. That's been the best ROI. And then positioning in the middle of the funnel with content, right? I think there was a report that Google came out with. It's called the 7-11 4, right? People spend around 7 hours of content with them, 11 different touch points at 4 different platforms. And so what I teach a lot of my students, and maybe you've adapted this a lot too, is you have to be everywhere because everybody's like, they consume things all over the place, right? And then, being really, you could cross post, which is always helpful, but then creating some ads around where your audience lives and really kind of having a game plan of like bringing them in and having an offer that's really irresistible to help place people. But what I've really found too, and I can get your take on this, is the North Star of everything we do is to buy back our time so that you could be the creative working on your business, not in it. Because if we're trapped in editing stuff, we're going to be less likely to feel like we're going to show up and be creative. And so I position everything since even ran my agency is like, how can I streamline with systems, automations, and AI, like we're talking about, and then who can run that? And then create some KPIs and expectations so that they can execute on those line of things. And so all I have to do is show up to lead and be that, person to be the talent. I'd love to get your take on how you've been able to adapt that over the years.
It's one of the things that I continually have been looking at, from day one. Every decision is made on, and that's the reason why I'm kicking myself that I didn't really work the AI angle a few years ago, and why I'm so gung-ho on it here in 2025. Every decision I've made has been, how can I do this better, faster, quicker, so that I can create more?
Yeah.
And you started off that question to me with, talking about the DRM, and that's so important because so many people get so just enamored with likes and follows and views. But if you're not if you're spending way too much time on one specific lead magnet without having any kind of data or research or understanding if that lead magnet is truly what your audience wants or is it what you want. So the leaner and quicker that I can create, then the more opportunity I can get people into a DRM so that I can then give them what they want.
Yeah.
And, the days of a single lead magnet, for my particular audience, they hate it. They hate spam. They hate giving their information. So I've had to jab, right hook like crazy. I've had to give away for free. And so I need the time to be able to give away and create. So, I look for, at one point, I don't know, 3 years ago or so, I said, all right, you know what? I can send this out. I can do this, but I'm kind of understand the film stuff. So I just said, I'm going to take a half a day and learn CapCut. And I did. And because I saw that those individual moment reaction videos that consumers were responding to. So I would do it. And then I just set my dinner time, after dinner time to sit down, flip on a game and edit while I'm sitting there. Because it was easier for me to do that than to sit down and batch a whole bunch of stuff and send it to some house. And it take them a week to get it back to me and me not like the edits.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, there's some specifics around that is really interesting of like how to make a business that's running in such a way that we have impact first. And I talk with so many of my students are like, how can I help as many people as possible? And that's getting really serious and going pro about what that looks like. And really the name of the game is marketing. And it's so interesting that you're growing your audience and you're doing just that. And you're getting really clear on what it takes, the teams, the systems, leveraging AI. I mean, that's the way it goes, you know. Talk about over the years too with like the family dynamic, like being the sole breadwinner and having kids. Like, how's the balance there with the hustle of being an entrepreneur, doing everything as well as kind of trying to spend as much time as you possibly can with the family? that Talk
It,
about the struggles or even the things that you're dealing with and how you sorted through it.
yeah, it was. You know, it was, we had the luxury, both my wife and I, of being, as performers and a choreographer. We were solopreneurs in our 20s. But it's different. You don't take the classes to learn about the hustle. You just know if your butt doesn't get to an audition, you don't have another gig.
Right.
So we kind of learned, and then in our 30s when we got to this, the family decision was, she's going to stop and I'm going to be the sole breadwinner. So I would set the hours and then we'd set the family time. It was just simple time blocking.
Yeah.
And if we got to a point, for me, when the kids were younger, I would do the day, but then 5 to 7 was family time. It was hanging out, it was homework, it was dinner. And then sometimes I would extend it, but where I would do tucking in and stuff like that. But yeah, to get where I am now, when the kids were older, there were a lot of days that I would come home and be there for dinner, and then 8:30 to midnight I was working. And I have a lot of friends who are doing side hustle and they're driving Ubers. My side hustle was learning and developing. And I just always make sure that when I'm doing that I don't get up and say I'm going to grind all day. I get up and say I'm going to make a balance, because if I get some creative hair, in my brain at 9 o'clock at night, I want to have the energy for it. And I get rejuvenated with the time with the family. So, we take our vacations and everyone's cool with dad's crazy schedule. And, I'd say I did a lot of work when my kids were asleep.
Talk about the importance of like education, for, coaching and mentorship that you've had to get up to the point that you have now. Was this all self-taught, or was there a lot of like investment of time and energy to get the best people to help you out?
Oh God, no, not self-taught. Mentors, coaches, masterminds.
Yeah.
It's all been a part, day one again, coming from the world of performing. When I was, you go to class, whether it's acting or dance class or voice class, and you learn from a professional.
Yeah.
Even the best do. And those that don't sustain. And one of the things that happened for me in my performing career was I was the offensive lineman. I was necessary, but not the quarterback. I was good in showbiz terms. In a lot of people say, "Oh my God, you're so great at that," and I'm like, "Yeah, but not compared to that person." They're excellent. And so when you're good, you learn to be indispensable. And when you're indispensable, you never have an ego to think that you can't learn something else, because you realize you're only there because of this one little thing. You're not there because you're a Grammy winning singer, And so for me, and then it was crazy. Then I shifted into the business world, and oh my God, everybody was all about personal growth and coaches. So coaches, mentors, and masterminding, and realizing that as you move up the ladder, that you need to continue conversations with other people at the level that you want to be.
Yeah.
Show me the character of someone. You want to learn the character of someone, show me the 5 people they associate with the most.
That's so true. So true. I remember early on in my entrepreneurship journey, I only worked with people in the local area. And when I started helping people in the marketing agency, and what I did do now is there's an exponential growth because we're a globalized audience now that we can help people with. When did you come to terms with that? Where when you were just a real estate broker for a decade plus, and then you're like, hey, I can reach people and help more people all over the North America, at least,
Super early. When I started in real estate, I joined a coaching program before I had my license. The company had one of their workshops in Anaheim, California, right across the street from Disneyland. So I go to the workshop. They're talking about working by referral. I'm across the street from where all my friends are working, and it just was a light bulb. So I went home and, I brought out a whiteboard and had to beg my wife for $4,500 for a year's worth of coaching. And I didn't have a real estate license yet. And that kind of started it for me and made me realize that this was going to be something that was going to be important in my life. And one of the things that they did was they suggested in my particular industry, I was kind of force fed the globalization because in my industry, someone's going to get transferred to Dallas or Atlanta. So what do? So this company had 5-6 events all throughout the year. So my first 10 years in real estate, I was at conferences in other parts of the country 4 or 5 times a year, face to face with these people, having conversations with them. Then 2016, 17, 18, when my wife was like, you're only happy when you work with the Disneyland people. I was listening to Gary Vaynerchuk and other people talking about e-commerce and all that. And I went, well, wait a minute. I'm a personality. What if I got my message out globally to everyone? And then if they ask me for help, I already have the relationship with the person in Nashville, Chicago, Seattle, Portland. But they're out there attempting to reach these people hyper locally. What if I did it the e-commerce way? It was, again, you love it or hate it with Gary Vaynerchuk, but the guy bought wine.com in 1998 because everyone thought it was a dumb idea. And I was thinking, everyone in e-commerce was talking about, the early ideas about drop shipping and all these things. But I suddenly realized that in my weird little industry, because there is a referral system built into it, I could be an personality that's an educator that isn't selling a book, a workshop, or an actual consumable product. I could sell the education and eventually, if they wanted to do so, pass them to this elite group of people that I call my unicorns. And that was kind of the beginning of it. And it's been 100% of my focus and attention is how to become that resource that people want to go to. And yeah, they can come in and get it all for free and do it on their own, or they can go, oh my gosh, this guy's everywhere.
Yeah. Dude, I could talk to you forever about some of this stuff because it's fun to kind of talk, about the media part of everything and the reach that you have. But how can people follow you and connect with you most?
Oh, another wonderful thing that happened in my career. Howtobuyahome.com. Some guy sold that to me back in 2021 or 22 for peanuts. So everything's there at howtobuyahome.com. Your links to the podcast, to the YouTube, to all the social media. You can find it all there.
I'll put those links down below. Go connect with David, get his expertise. I think that's going to be really helpful for him and for you guys to be able to get those resources and help. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Go pick up that full resource down below, and we will see you on the next episode.